So a couple of posts back, I ran through some of the movements that your pelvis should be able to do that you really want to make sure you keep going as you get older, so that your walking is always efficient, because walking uses every muscle and every joint in your body when it's done well. Today, I'm going to pick out just one particular range of motion because we've been working on this in class. And it's become obvious from watching many people, there were 3 very common compensations that were happening. So if you want to find out whether one side of your abdominal wall in your back is not behaving as it should, or whether there's a hip, knee and ankle that are not communicating as freely as they are, come up to standing and join me. So if you take the center of your pelvis or the center of the pubic bone, can you stand your feet equal distance from that point? Can you put your feet as close to facing forward as is possible for you? If it feels a bit pigeon-toed, that's okay. If it's causing you some pain or discomfort, back out of it. But eventually you would want your feet to point forward. Now take your hands and put them on the top of the pelvis like you're going to give someone a piece of your mind. From here, allow one knee to bend. And as much as possible, we want that knee to go forward rather than really falling in or falling out. Pause for a moment. On the bent knee side, have you noticed you suddenly have a longer waist, and on the other side you have a shorter waist? Or you're aware that one hand is sitting lower than the other. Now straighten up and do the same thing on the other side. Bend the knee and see, do you have a longer waist on the bent knee side and a shorter waist on the straight leg side? Do that a couple of times and just be really clear in your mind. Do they feel equal, or do you have one side where you can feel it's much harder to get the knee and ankle to bend, and therefore the drop of the pelvis isn't so obvious? Once you're pretty sure that you know which side feels perhaps a little more restricted than the other, come back to where we started. So here's common compensation number 1. Take your hands and place them either side of your pelvis. So these are going to act like 2 brick walls. When you bend a knee, I want you to make sure your pelvis on the straight leg side doesn't do this motion. And then check it on the other side. Now, it could be very subtle. I'm showing you a very exaggerated version, but you're really looking to make sure that you don't sense any form of out to the side. And then, has that changed anything for you? Has it changed your opinion of which is the restricted side or not? And then come back to center. Now, if you take your hands back to the top of the pelvis and you come round the front, you've got these 2 front corner bones. Can you bring your hands onto them in a way that helps you to figure out, do these bones point straight ahead, or do you have a little bit of a twist in one or other direction? Can you do what's necessary to try and bring them as close to feeling like they're looking straight ahead? Now, when you bend a knee, do they stay looking straight ahead? Now, they might be going on the diagonal, but what we're looking for is there one that's trying to come round the corner to help you out? Straighten up and do the same thing on the other side. Take your time with it and really check in, because again, it could be very subtle or it might be very obvious, but you want to notice whether you're doing the movement you think you are, or whether your pelvis is finding a way around the corner. Now you might want to play with, on the straight leg, take your hand to the side of the pelvis. On the bent knee, keep that corner bone, bend the knee, and just make sure you're not going to the side and round the corner, because we've seen a bit of that this week. And then you can do the same thing on the other side. So when the knee bends, there's no out to the side and round the corner we go. The last common compensation is when the lower back is being used in an inefficient way to get you into this movement. I'm going to go side on. So in standing, the rib cage and the pelvis should really sit on top of each other. It's very common to have a rib cage that's coming through the door quicker than the pelvis. Sometimes the other way, the ribs are dropping back, the pelvis is through the door first. Here's a very quick fix. Pull up all 10 toes. If you can't, your weight is pitched too far forward. Drift yourself back a little bit and keep going till you can get the toes off. Yes, it's going to feel a little bit like this, but see if you can come and find your balance. Now see if that's helped you to get the ribs and pelvis closer to sitting on top of each other, and then relax the toes down. Now as you let one knee bend, I want you to notice when you bend the knee, do you change the shape of your back in any way at all? And then straighten and do the same thing on the other side. Because the only change we should be getting on the back would be the pelvis and the ribs moving towards each other one side, opening up on the other side. If what we're getting is an opening up but also a push forward or a pull back, then we know the lower back is playing too much. So please feel free to comment below. Let me know, what did you find? Were you a beautifully balanced human being, or were you a normal human being where you could feel that there was some imbalance, and what was it for you? And then in the next couple of posts, I'll show you a couple of my favorite exercises for trying to change the things that are going on and see if we can help you walk through life more efficiently.